everybody. I'm Kristy Williams. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety birthday is August the 12th of 2012, and I'm a member of the Came to Believe group in Rocky Mount. We meet at St. Paul United Methodist Church on Tuesdays and Friday nights at 7. So if you're ever in our area, we're about 2 hours away. We'd love to have you. Steve is a buddy of mine, and I joked with him after David asked me to speak. I said, well, Steve, I guess I'm just not good enough for you. But it's a good group. I do love this program. I love those conventions. I love getting together. The fellowship and the program, are two separate things, and I love both of them. It's what saved my life, and it made me want my life. It's an honor and a privilege to attend an AA meeting, let alone be asked to speak. Because I promise you, almost 4 years ago, nobody wanted to hear anything that I had to say. And I was regularly told, in court usually, to be quiet, which didn't work. But I'll tell you what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like today, because it's very, very different. The psychic change that occurred in me, I attribute wholly to God and to working the steps of this program. I was one of the ones, I've never done anything wholeheartedly in my life. I've always done things my way. I am a textbook alcoholic. This is the textbook, and my name should be in front of every action in there because it had me pegged. I never had any doubt about that. I held on to that because my life was unmanageable from a very early age. I was born and raised in Nash County on a tobacco farm. I was one of 5 grandchildren. I had an older brother, but my first cousins, we were all, very close in age, so we were like brothers and sisters. And if you're from a farm family, we didn't get to have friends spend the night. Mama didn't want anybody she didn't know or their young'uns coming over, so it was your cousins get to stay, or that's it. Looking back now, having been sober, I was a peculiar child. There were ways about me now that, knowing what I know, if I saw it in another child, I'd be like, ooh, save her a seat. She's on the way. I loved being by myself. I was wildly imaginative. Now, I was the baby, so I was a little bit younger than all the rest of them. So I got left out a lot, and I was a tattletale. I was a pain in the you-know-what to all of them. So they wouldn't let me tag along, so I had to be a thorn to make my presence known. My poor brother, everything he ever got, a 3-wheeler, I stole it, stripped the gears, and wrecked it when he was in the Bahamas on his senior trip. His go-karts, ran and jumped in it and ran it up a tree. So any abuse that I took from my older brother, it was well-deserved because I was a pain. But I would spend a lot of time by myself on the farm. Now, my mother lived next door. My father was an alcoholic. Raging alcoholic, and I can't tell his story, but he died by the hands of alcohol at his own doing in 2004. And I know now, after a lot of hatred, that he was just sick and suffering, and I feel the compassion now that only this program would have led me to feel for him. So he was not in the picture. My mother was always codependent. She's always been depressed. So she stayed, we lived next door to my grandmother and my grandfather, and it was on a fully functioning tobacco farm. Well, as long as I can remember, my papa had Alzheimer's, and we had him in the home. Grandma said that, he raised her 5 children and provided for them, and he was going to stay in the home as long as, we could possibly manage it. And he died in our home in 1990, in the home he built. So I lived next door. Me and my brother didn't get along. There was 5 years in between us, and I was a grandma's girl, 100%. Because she was a big woman. She was the I Ching to my family. She was the say. She just, man, it just still doesn't get any higher in my mind than Grandma. So I spent a lot of time with her. My mama worked at a textile plant, and she worked 8 to 4. She didn't drink, but she came home. She sat in front of a television with an Inquirer and her cigarettes, and that's where she went. She got lost into it. So I don't ever really remember her being present for anything. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't do a whole lot of stuff together. So I stayed, with my grandma, helping out with my granddaddy. So I learned at an early age what it was to be, you know, to have a life of service, because I did everything I could for my grandparents. Grandma had a garden, you know, we ate out of that garden. We had hog houses, you know, just a nice country upbringing. And I'm very thankful for my childhood. I was never around any abusive people. Nobody in my family that I knew of ever drank in front of me. You know, they were tobacco farmers, so everybody smoked cigarettes. So it was no surprise when I started sneaking them at 13, you know, years old. But I never had any examples of drinkers. Just my father, who would blow into town long enough to start some junk, and on his brand new Cadillac, mind you, never paid $1 of any child support or anything for us. You know, so he was not real high up on my list. I never knew anything good, and that's what I associated alcohol with, just a drunk. But I know now that I also associated the perception of success with it, because he was the drunk, but he always rolled up on a brand new Cadillac. He always lived in a gigantic, beautiful home somewhere, you know. So I started now making that connection that, you know, the one person that's like this is the most successful person that I see. So I had my values a little mixed up then. But he would come into town. My brother had something to do with him. I never really did. I was a grandma's girl. I was very standoffish, you know. And I did weird things. So I spent a lot of time by myself. And I was about borderline princess and then borderline tomboy. So there was this dogwood tree in our front yard, and I had a little BB gun that I'd stolen from my brother. Bless his heart, couldn't have nothing. And I would sit in this dogwood tree with my little heartthrob posters in the tree of Kirk Cameron, painting my nails, shooting little birds in a mulberry bush. I mean, there's just something not right about somebody that's painting their nails and killing little birds at the same time. I think back now, I'm just like, whoa. Dead giveaway. But we had, you know, I had a lot of free time to myself, and I was grandma's girl, so I could do no wrong. So I just lived with grandma. I mean, I was, you know, next door. My brother stayed with my mom. We never really got along, so I stayed with grandma all the time and helped her take care of Papa. He had adult diapers, and, you know, everywhere she went, I went. And she was my world. School, you know, I never really wanted to go to school. They had trouble with me starting in first grade. I did not want to leave my grandma. And you would see her Caprice Classic riding down the road, leaving Cooper School, and me running behind it, and about 5 teachers chasing me. Or if I did stay with my mama, she would send me across the yard to go catch the bus at Grandma's house because she had to go to work, but I wouldn't go to Grandma's house. As soon as she got out of sight, I'd hide in the boat barns. I mean, my brother went to school dirty every day from running me down in a field because I didn't want to go to school. So, sitting in the guidance counselor's office, why won't you go to school? I said, because I want to be with my grandma. I want to be with my cats. You know, we had 30 cats outside. I want to, you know, I don't want to be here. And I know now that that was a direct result of the impending doom that I felt. Because I was so afraid that something was going to happen to her and I wouldn't be there. I know now that that was my biggest fear. And I mean, this fear gripped me for all of my natural life until she passed away when I was almost 17 years old. That was it. It was just awful. And I've always been that way. Walk around with an impending sense of doom, like the bottom is about to drop out, until finally it did. So, early teens. This is when those talk shows became popular. I was sure I was going to end up on one of those. Maury Povich and all these outrageous teens, because I didn't do anything anybody told me to do. It was my show, my way or the highway. I did everything like I wanted to. My mother, you know, she couldn't control me. And Grandma didn't really try. I didn't really care for high school too much. It was 45 minutes away, so I couldn't really have friends at school. I was a cheerleader 1 year, and that was awkward. Then I fell into the crowd of other substances, you know, so that was night and day. And then I was probably 15 years old, and I had this boyfriend, and he was 21 years old. So now in my mind, if I saw a 21-year-old with a 15-year-old, I'm like, what is wrong with him? You know, sickness. But for me, it's just like, I've got an older boyfriend, you know, he's got a car. was a 95 Mitsubishi GS Turbo. And I didn't have a license, but he did what I said. I drove everywhere we went. No license, no nothing. And so when I was almost 16, I thought it was a great idea if he moved in, and nobody was going to tell me no. So the times that Mama was okay with it, we lived there. The times that she wasn't, we went to Grandma's, back and forth across the yard. And, you know, it made a lot of sense at the time. So high school, I didn't really, you know, have a good experience there because I wasn't with them. All of my friends were older. So I'm already at that age drinking and partying and driving around. Hadn't even had driver's ed, didn't matter. Doing exactly what I wanted to. You know, I would sneak out of the house. And I'm telling you, the powers of persuasion, I was always really good at getting my way with people. And I'm in sales now, if that makes any sense. Destined to be that. But I had a friend who was an older guy, and he would leave a car down the road for me and my friends, and I'd have girlfriends spend the night. This was on a weeknight, and we'd wait till everybody goes to sleep, and we'd run down the field. And there was a car with two 40s of Old English in there and a little Cavalier. We were like 14, 15 years old. We're riding around all night. We've got a carton of eggs. We're egging cars and drinking and driving, you know, well before I was ever old enough to drive a car. So that right there, you know, should have tipped me off that I was going to be a problem. So, you know, I would sneak out. I'd come back across the yard. My mom's coming across the yard. She sees me. And I'm still running in the house. And I get in the house, and I lay in the bed. I'm out of breath. And she's like, where have you been? I'm like, what are you talking about? I was right here the whole time. She's like, you're out of breath. You've got dirt on you. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I truly believed in my demented little mind that if I did not admit it, it didn't happen. To this day, there's still stuff that I've done. I've been caught red-handed, and I would look you right in your face and say, you're crazy. I never did that. You've got problems. There's something wrong with you. You know, schizo, whatever. I mean, really, stop schizo. So this boyfriend, you know, I started to outgrow him in my later teens. I had been living, you know, well beyond my years. And when my grandma died, she had congestive heart failure. Starting in February, when I was probably 13 years old, I would sleep in the bed with her at night because I'd put my hand on her back to make sure she was still breathing. This I'm telling you, was the worst thing that could happen, was losing her. And every February, she had it until the February in 1996, and she finally died. And it was on. It was no holds barred. I'm on my own. She's the only thing. I never felt like I meant anything to anybody else in the world. And the war ensued on myself. So, you know, the crowds, that was the start of the crowds getting lower and lower and lower until they got really, really low. And that boyfriend, that car wasn't new anymore. He wasn't cute anymore. He was annoying. You know, I wanted to go out and party, and I was really mean to him. And that's you know, that's part of what we do. That's part, you know, if you don't fit into the plan, you know, you're part of the problem. Move. So I found some other friends, more advanced friends, and got into some really wild stuff. And then in 2000, I had a friend. I'd always have one person. You know, it's like I could be friends with all these people, but I can't hang out with too many people. I just got one little partner in crime, you know. And my buddy Hal, were we hitting the roads. And he had a 96 Camaro. There again, why would you let me drive your sports car? Messed up. So I was coming out of 301, northbound lanes higher than southbound. It had been raining, July. I had just turned 21, and the car spun out of control. Didn't know my foot was still on the gas. I hit a ditch embankment head on at 70. We flipped 4 times end over end and then twice back on the side. T-tops collapsed. We had a conversation the whole time this car was rolling. I was like, I'm so sorry, Hal. He's like, put your hands up. T-tops are collapsing. I mean, I remember the whole thing. I'm just like, wow. Car's upside down. I'm hanging. I was like, man, I'm really sorry. Could you get me out? So he kicks the window. He gets me out. Taking none of this seriously. You would think, if you'd seen this car, you would be like, you know, she'd be scared. I'm like, oh, God, get my purse. Get my purse. And this is back when the CD player still had the little tape. You know, it had to be plugged into the cassette. I was like, oh, and get my Creed CD. Oh my God, I've lost my flip-flop. It's got a big flower on it. We're around the car. The car's running upside down, almost nose touching in. And I'm looking for a flip-flop with a flower on it. Smoking a cigarette. And then, boof, out of nowhere, the highway patrol. Naturally. So the firemen come up and, they're grabbing my cigarette. I'm like, hey. So I didn't take any of this seriously. And I didn't think I drank that much. Which I really didn't. I got arrested. I blew a .05. And Hal got arrested for aiding and abetting because he was stark sober. And they were like, why would you let her drive? And you were completely sober. And I was like, because I get what I want. He did what I want. And it was just a big joke. And I remember that was my first experience going to jail. And he had his little flip phone. And he was dialing backwards. And it was funny. We get out of jail. Dad picks us up, drops us off into my driveway, and I look under the garage and I was like, there's my car sitting right there. I literally just got out of jail, and we get in my car at like 2 in the morning and head on back downtown. Keep at it. So, that was my first experience with DWI, and I remember just being immensely thankful that I'd gotten my first one and I was 21, because I was really worried about that. I was like, it's going to be really bad when I get one. I can't even, drink yet. So I remember thinking, whew, at least I was 21. None of it, didn't take it seriously. I started, in high school, back up to the second grade when they knew something was different about me. They went through every, ailment you can as far as mental instability and everything. Couldn't really find anything. So they were like, well, there's something different about her. So they gave me a test, an Otis Lennon test. And they took me out of my core classes and put me in a trailer unit as AG, academically gifted. So I went through school with a small group of people. So I was the Jonathan Livingston Seagull of Southern Ash. It was terrible. I didn't fit in the big crowds, so I was one of the small ones. So I had been an AG and would have graduated early, but in the 11th grade, I'd missed so many days, they just told me not to come back. And I really didn't have any interest in going anyway, so I stopped going. I didn't even quit school. That was paperwork. I just stopped going. I just never went. Never went back. So I had started working in the wonderful car industry, where all are welcome. I used to call it the land of the misfit toys, because it was almost a prerequisite that you had to have substance abuse issues to be successful in that business. Lots have changed. We drug test now, God. Which is part of the reason I'm sober now. But I started working in that business, and I worked into the different positions, in administration, and weaned into sales. And I started earning, a good living. So I learned real quick that I can get in as much trouble as I want to, because I'm not asking anybody for anything. I can pay an attorney. I can pay for the 40 hours of substance abuse courses. I don't need your help. And I never asked anybody for help. Since that night that I got that first DWI, I've been charged and arrested for drinking while intoxicated or driving while intoxicated 8 times. There's no reason that I should still be alive with some of the wrecks that I've had. There's no reason that I should even have a license. So that's God alone that has afforded me that privilege, because I don't deserve it. I'll tell you right now, I don't deserve it. The risks that I took and put other people in harm's way, it was all fun and games, but I paid my way out of it. So that was, me and Hal, we wrecked the car. Things were kind of starting to get serious as far as starting to get into trouble. Met this guy at the club. He came up, he's like, hey, you want to dance? I was like, no. Started drinking. About 30 minutes later, he's like, hey, you want to dance? I was like, hey. He spent the night. He never left. So I did the next right thing and married him. We actually dated for about 2 years, and he was called up with the National Guard right after 9/11 happened. This was actually in late 2002, and he was called up. So as a girlfriend, he says I would not be informed of anything, and then, I needed to handle all the money, so he just had to justify of why we needed to get married. So this is my great decision making. And this is brutal honesty. I probably shouldn't even admit this. I wouldn't if it weren't, y'all being special too. But I was thinking about it, and I had just bought a car. And I had to take a higher rate. And I was like, ew, if I married you, I could get an account at the credit union. He's like, uh-huh. So I got married on a Monday, and I refinanced my car on a Tuesday. So if you want to know the truth about it, I got married for a better rate. Serious. You can tell that one's going to last. So he went overseas, and he came home. It was, all was fine while he was gone, because I had a friend of mine move in, her and her boyfriend, who did not make an honest living. And when he came home from overseas, I had my life going. It was no holds barred. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, you step into this, or, and he did. And, which he was no angel. And then it turned into fighting all the time. I was no wife. I was no girlfriend that you wanted. I won't speak on his behalf because we're supposed to clean our own side of the street up, but I was not in any part of the definition of the word wife. I was not loyal. I was not faithful. I was nothing. I cooked and I cleaned, which, hey, you got something out of it. But he ended up moving back. We'd moved to Wake Forest. He wanted to get me away from my family. And we fought and fought and fought and fought and fought. Bobby and Whitney fight, out in the yard, laws coming, it was terrible. And so he ended up, in 2005, he moved back to Kansas, where he was from. Left me standing in the middle of the road. The middle of the road. Literally, how cliche is that? Like, no. And there he drives off. So I just painted my door victim right there. I'm the victim. Everything, da, 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 da. And that's what we do. That's what we do. So really, when I thought that no holds barred, when my grandma died, it just intensified. At this point, I'm staying up. I'm losing days drinking. And I was not going to come wagging my tail back between my legs back to Rocky Mount. So I stayed in Wake County and worked at a country club, worked at Briar Creek for a while, and then migrated downtown, Carolina Country Club, and then migrated down to the ultra lounges and the bars. And there again, I was in table sales. I was making killer money. Working in a bar, I could make $500 a night, and I didn't need your money. I didn't need you for anything. And the parties, those people are serious about their parties. You hang out with millionaires, and they've got all the resources, and I glamorized it. I'm like, if I can achieve this financial status, or if I can get here, I can do these things, and I can be just as messed up as the day is long, and nobody's going to say anything to me. Because I noticed that these people that had all this money, they could get tore up drunk. Their wives, with their $100,000 outfits on, falling down drunk, but nobody looks twice because that's his wife. They are somebody. So there again, I associated seeing, the Bentleys and the Lamborghinis with that level of success, to where you can drink and do whatever you want to. Nobody's going to say anything. Thought it was a good idea when I was leaving the restaurant. This was in 2007. My boss, there was a guest of his, he was an airline pilot. He was like, he's got to get back to Cary. Somebody needs to follow him and make sure he's okay. Now, everybody here is so drunk they can't even stand up. And I'm like, I got him. I got this. Great idea. As soon as I pulled out on P Street and got on the Capitol, boop. And they were going to get him. The cop told me, he's like, I was going after him for swerving, and then you ran the stop sign on him. So, there I started getting in trouble in Wake County. And the Nash County folk, they were a lot nicer than the Wake County Superior Court people were to me. But then you've got, I had 6 up to this point that I'd gotten out of. So in 2007, that was my first conviction. And the repercussions, I couldn't just pay to get out of it anymore. Fast forward, I had to come back to Rocky Mount. My mother had brain surgery. I remember her being at Duke, having major brain surgery that October. I'd been up for 3 or 4 days drinking, and The last thing I remember was getting out of the car at the parking lot at Duke, and I dropped with a grand mal seizure. Wake up in the emergency room. Apparently it was quite the event. I was spitting the tongue off, and it was in the middle, in the morning, and it was rough. My mother was up there trying to, have surgery. And she has now, and what I put her through, what we do. And then I moved back home, and I was just a wreck. It was just the lowest of the low. The people that I ended up with, the guy that I ended up with, ended up breaking my nose, depressing my cheek, the fighting, just what you end up with. The further you slide down the pike, it's truly amazing. Everything that has been told to me in this program is true. And so my mother's recovering from brain surgery. She's got the onset of Alzheimer's, and I'm putting her through immortal hell. 2010, I'd come back to the car dealership. In 2010, I was leaving a steakhouse, and the last thing I remember, there was a deer in the road. I swerved to miss this deer and hit a concrete piling head on at 55 and got thrown out of the car. So, and the car's spinning around like the Gravitron, and here comes that girl, 21 years old again, because I don't know how. I think it's because I've been in so many car accidents, drunk, that I immediately grabbed my purse and phone when the car was spinning, like I knew I was going to get thrown out, because I sit up in a field seeing stars in the middle of nowhere, and I've got my phone in my hand and my purse on my shoulder. And I look down, I'm like, oh, got my shoes. So I stand up and I call my service manager at work. I was like, you're not going to believe this. He was like, want to bet? I was like, well, come and get me. He's like, do you see woods? I said, yes. He said, get in them. So I get up and I'm going to start running towards the woods. Great idea. Come get me. The car's on fire. I almost hit somebody's house. I mean, I'm literally from here to the wall, from their front porch. I almost hit their house. And I was going to get away from there. And as soon as I stood up, I saw blue lights coming my way. And I had my surrender right there. I mean, that state trooper just started walking toward me, and I crumbled like a house of... I mean, it was terrible. I'd never done that. To the point where he was such a nice guy. They record, I guess, and he's just like, because I'm just like, I'm drunk, I need help. And he's like, shh, shh. So I'm picking up, like, I'm drunk, trying to talk to him. He's just, bless his heart. And my face was as black as a microphone from the airbag dust. And it ended up breaking my nose, which I was unrecognizable. So, and I bargained with him. I was like, just don't call back up. I hate backup. I do not want to get swarmed. I'll call somebody to come and get my car. So the service manager's already on the way. He pulls up. He's like, I got the rollback coming. They put the fire out. Leave her car. So here he's like, do you want to go to the hospital? This is the sickness. This is what this disease does to preserve itself, because my neck could have been broken. My neck was hurting. I mean, I just had a major car accident, and the word toxicology popped up in my brain. And I was like, ain't no going to the hospital. I'll live. Let's go to jail. Been there. Let's get this over with. So I got convicted. I was told by my lawyer, who charged me $10,000 just to look at me. I blew a 34 that night. I was on a .04 restriction, so I was 8 times roughly the legal limit over what was legal for me to drive. And I was still bobbling around. He was like, how are you alive? That is almost legally anesthetized. I was like, well, I could use another. Been a rough night. So I go to jail, and this time it wasn't funny. Nobody was immediately out there to pick me up. I was left in there. Like, I had to take a nap. That was the first time I'd ever taken a nap in jail. I'm like, oh, I'm still here. And stuff just got real serious real fast. And he told me because they were about to pass Laura's Law, and I was a habitual, that I would serve 12 months in prison. I'm like, you don't understand. I'll kill myself before that happens. He was like, well, you better hurry up. For real. Like, yeah, they're not going to let you take anything poison in the courtroom, so hurry up and do it now, because you're going. So it ended up, and I have to be careful making light of that, because there's women in my home group who serve real time. But that little 7 days in jail, oh, honey, it's not for me. It's not for me. I truly believe had there been stiffer punishment in the beginning, I might not have gotten as far as I did. But it takes what it takes. So I ended up, putting my mother through this. didn't have a driver's license for a year. She was taking me to work. Like I said, she's got the onset of dementia. She's at this point, she was she was about 70. And I'm threatening her at 2 o'clock in the morning that if she doesn't, quarter to 2, because I don't care how much I had to drink. If I saw the clock almost about to strike the time where you can't buy alcohol, the worst panic set in that you've ever seen. And I would, I'd say, well, if you don't get up and take me to the store right now, I'll take your car. You won't have a car because I'll probably wreck it. Or I'm going to, it's what we do. I would never in a million years, do something like that to my mother today, 74 years old. She lives with me. It's just what we do. I ended up, by the grace of God, they sent me a letter from the DMV that was wrong. Okay, so my first experience was 2011 in May with Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a friend of mine who was bad off, and I'd seen a big change in her. She went from working at the bar to Starbucks, and I was like, what has she done? And they took me to my first meeting. After 90 days sober, I was like, I love you people, but I think I might have overreacted. I'm good. If I can quit for 90 days, I promise I'm good. From the minute I laid my lips on a beer, I drank 18 of them at my cousin's house and then was looking for his liquor. And I mean in a matter of 2 hours. So everything they told me in those meetings that I attended for that 90 days, that it progresses. I've got this disease doing push-ups. Like they're in prison and they're just getting stronger and stronger. The whole time I'm not even drinking. And it was absolutely true. So when I went back out for that last year before I finally got sober, I had lost my will to live. I'd go to work, and I'm performance-based. So I had to perform to make money. And I did. I did a really good job of putting the game face on. And then I'd get home and I would drink for absolute oblivion. Absolute oblivion. And pray to not wake up anymore. The most earnest prayers to God to please take my life from me. And then I would feel the guilt and remorse because I'd think about all the little children in the cancer hospital and people that want their life. And here I am, healthy. I've got this life. I've never had anything bad happen to me. And I'm ungrateful because I'm begging for God to take it back from me. And that is the insanity. That's the insanity that we go through with this. And it just gets worse and worse. So I came back into the program and everybody in my home group looked at me like I had never left. Hey girl, what's up? Hey man, come on in. And I'm just like, this is the worst thing ever. They're going to hate me. And it was just the best folks ever. So this time, I'd never given anything a wholehearted effort. This time I came back into this program and I did everything that I was told. Everything that I was told. You don't date anybody. You don't have relations for minimum 1 year, but I really like 5 out of you because you were a special case. I did everything that she asked me to do. I got 90 Valiums a month because I had a psychiatrist who had pancreatitis, bless his heart. He'd sit there and drool. He was on such medication. And I'm whittling this man out of his prescriptions when he's writing 90 a month, and I'm selling them. I wasn't even taking them. I'm subsidizing my income with all these medications. And then I was on Prozac, and she told me that she said, I'm not a doctor, but if you want me to work with you personally, I need you to not take any mood-altering substances at all. Life with no mood-altering substances, y'all. There was no way of wrapping my brain around that. There was no way. But I did it, and I did it one day at a time. And I remember calling her, from work, and I'm out on the lot in between the cars, just losing my mind, saying the serenity prayer with her on the phone. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? I mean, just the embodiment, of everybody in the program helping me and calling me. I made a change 6 months in, and it's proven, it's no harm, no foul, but it's proven to be the best change in my life with my current sponsor. She's about this tall, and she's from upstate New York. And when I call her whining about my charmed problems, she doesn't tell me to pray about it. She tells me where I can take my head out of. And to do it quick, because she's tired of hearing the blather. And that's what I need. I need somebody that I cannot manipulate I need somebody that is not affected by my cries and my whining and my manipulations. I need somebody to shoot me straight. And that's what this woman does. And there's truly something magical about, I look at this book and we do our book study, and all these notes that I have are from my line of sponsorship. And there's something magical about a woman sitting down with another woman and reading this book out loud to her, word for word, and waiting and saying, you need the note there's your note. And then her telling you that, I hope you don't think any of this is for you. She skipped right over me, and the reason I was there with her wasn't to keep me sober or her sober. It was to set me up to help the next woman. And then all those friends that I thought I had that we partied with, all those millionaires, where were they? They were nowhere to be found. And now I have a home group, and I have home group members that take the day off of work and ride 2 hours and read my big book to me the whole way here. Today, at 36, almost 37 years old, I finally appreciate this life. And I can finally understand what it means to turn it over to God and to give it to Him. Because I promise, the person I was would not be here because I was too selfish for that. An hour that I can't do what I want to do to go talk to some people? No. I don't care what good it would do to somebody. It just wasn't in the cards. And for me to think about other people before I think about myself, that fifth step with that woman that sponsors me today, we've all got warts. We've all got stuff that we don't want anybody to know that we were capable of thinking, let alone doing. And it was a 5-hour process with this woman who, every time I told her something, she cried and would tell me something about herself or tell me that I was not the only person that has ever been through this. And I was not a horrible, horrible human being for having done some of these things or even felt these ways. When I was having feelings about my father, who I really, never really knew because of this disease. And I wrote my letter, and the first thing I look out my window, and before I could even get the second little sniffle out, there was her car sitting right outside. Come on, we're going to the cemetery. And that's what we did. And I had no idea that just doing that would set me free. It set me free. I'm free. Freedom from bondage. I'm not being choked out. I don't have, I've got friends right now that say, well, I haven't been drinking for 11 months. And I just think, I'm strong enough and this and that. I may want to drink, but I am strong enough to not do it. I said, see, there's the difference between you and me because I don't want to drink. I have been relieved of the obsession and the compulsion, and that is the best gift of all. That's better than the not drinking and all the perks that come from being healthy and out of trouble. I'm not obsessing about drinking. I'd get to work and I'd start reading emails, and I love to cook. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm at my desk and I'm already planning what I'm going to cook for dinner and what drink I'm going to have with it. And by lunchtime, I was at Harris Teeter buying the food and and going to the liquor store. Because I could not do any of those errands after I got off because I was so ready to get home and start drinking. Drink for oblivion and drink till I wanted to expire. I start my day on my knees now, and I thank God for my sobriety, and I just pray. I still have to pray every day for Him to divorce my thinking from self-pity, self-seeking motives, because I can still do it. She says that I disasterbate. I don't know if she made that word up or what. She says it a lot in relation to me. But I absolutely do that. But I work this program every day. I show up at my meetings now. I had an employer who did not support my meetings, and I fought tooth and nail. And last December, I was willing to step out of my comfort zone because clearly, I've made this sales salary all these years, and I was willing to work for not a lot of money at all. And my sponsor will tell you that was bravery, and I walked away from my job on December the 14th. Been there for 8 years. And I was really worried about how I was going to pay my bills because I have more going out than that man was going to pay me before taxes. And I was there 2 weeks. And because of my willingness to allow God to care for me, I said, God, this is on you. You've got me. You brought me to it. You'll bring me through it. I got called back from the same owners of my company, but for a different store, was given the promotion. I go sit down, and the first thing he says is, people with cancer need chemotherapy, and people like you need meetings. And I need you to go to your meetings because I need you to be on your game when you're here. And I mean, it came through with everything else that I ever could have wanted. Just because I was willing to let God have his way. Self will run riot. You know, I could not propel the self-propulsion, you know, in the third step. I can't self-propel myself. I couldn't think myself sober. I do it one day at a time. I do it in this program. I love this program. I love y'all. And thank you for having me and listening to what I've got to say. Because if there's anything I could ever do, I just want to give back to what's been given to me. Thank you.